Well, welcome to This Week in Hearing. I'm your moderator, Amyn Amlani, and I am joined today by Dr. Krishan Ramdoo, who is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Tympa Health Technologies in the UK. So thank you for being here today.
Nice to be here.
So, your product is really fascinating to me, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before we dive into the product and what it offers, can you give us a little bit about your background and a little bit about the motivation behind your company?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Real pleasure to be here. So by background myself, I'm an ENT surgeon by background. I've been a practicing clinician for about 12 years now. I've also been doing my PhD in hearing health, so know a little bit about the space. And in England, we have the National Health System, and there's a program in the National Health System called the NHS England Clinical Entrepreneur Program. And that's where they choose clinicians who are doing exciting things and help them to kind of commercialize their idea. And I was fortunate to be one of the first 10 in the country to be appointed to that. And so all of that came about because I had this idea and innovation to how I could change the way ear and hearing health was delivered, not only here in the developed world, but around the whole world in the developing low-income resource countries. And it really started with one patient who I saw. And so I was a very junior early resident, I would say for you guys over there, where I saw a patient. She came I was currently covering care of the elderly ward, the geriatric ward. And she came in and she was a 79-year-old lady and came in confused. And she was treated by the attending team for an infection. But after being treated with that, she was still confused, disengaged with the ward, disengaged with her family. So me being a budding ENT surgeon, I thought, well, let me have a look in her ears. So I had a look in her ears, and lo and behold, there was full of cerumen. And I thought, well, let me take her down to the ENT department, remove it, had a look at her eardrum after that, and then got her a hearing test. And lo and behold, she had a age-related hearing loss. I arranged for her to be fitted with a hearing aid, followed up 6 months later, and she was a completely new lady. She was planning her 80th birthday, engaged with her family. And that really triggered for me. I said, well, that simple intervention I did there made such a big impact on that lady's life. And, as I progressed in my career, I was seeing so many more patients coming to my clinic, which I said, well, there has to be a better way where some of these things can be done outside of the specialist environment. And how could we put that in the hands of a allied health professional, so a non-ENT surgeon, but provide them with the right tools to do something accurately, efficiently, and ultimately better for the patient, and do that in a digital manner. And fundamentally, all of that experience is where Timpa Health came from. And we've now managed to develop a solution which allows you to take the whole ear clinic out into the community, but still link in with a specialist. It allows you to do looking in the ear, so digital otoscopy, wax removal, and a hearing screen. All of that is then pulled together into a digital record, which can be shared with any specialist in any location. And it just makes the whole process more efficient. And in the US, we link to a lot of billable codes as well. And I think with the advent of the way of, let's say, the changing landscape in the US, which is kind of pertinent to our conversation, I think Timpa has a real role to play in how we can provide that due diligence before someone is fitted with either a hearing aid or an over-the-counter for that matter. And I guess I've got one here as well, which I can show you if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the questions that comes to mind, and I'm really intrigued by all of this, is the consumer is now self-sufficient, right? Self-efficacy comes in, and they're going to take care of themselves. And you've created this tool. Just a real quick question: have you found that the elderly are able to use this tool? I know it's a smartphone-based tool, but are they able to use it and use it successfully? And can you share any of that information that you might have?
So the way that the tool actually works, it's delivered with, it needs to be an allied health professional. So it could be a physician's assistant, a nurse, a pharmacist, a pharmacy assistant. But what we've enabled with Timpa, because in the UK here, we're in multiple sectors. We're in pharmacies, we're in opticians, we're in the NHS, retirement villages. What it does, it enables better access. And in answer to kind of, obviously, we don't expect consumers to do it themselves. I mean, that could be something future that we decide to do. But what it enables is it better access. To be able to see a specialist is very challenging wherever you are in the world. And so it enables almost a gold standard assessment to be done in the comfort of their own home, if it was a retirement village, or somewhere a bit more local, an urgent care centre or a pharmacy, an optical setting. And I think that is what's enabled us to get some traction. I mean, to date, the kit has been used on more than 200,000 patients, where they've been able to access care much quicker. And then from that point of contact with whoever the health professional was, they're then able to put them in the right direction of an appropriate person. If they fail the screening hearing test, they know that when they're going to see the audiologist, they're likely to require some aiding. And in answer, in some respects, to your question, the way that this tool works, it's really been supportive in customer engagement. I mean, it comes in a very straightforward, simple box like this, which has a set of headphones in there. The Timpa tool itself is really simple to use. So, it has a normal light that you'd have a speculum that goes on. So that gives you the diagnostic quality. You then have this spacing mechanism, which allows you to do the wax removal. And you have the headphones, which the elderly patient, let's say, will put on. And then they tap the screen when they see the screener. But the bit which really gets engagement is the fact that everything that is done is seen on the screen. And the patient really gets engaged. And so when they're being sent on, let's say, to an audiologist, they really feel engaged with their hearing journey, which we know, as you know very well, it takes someone almost 5 to 7 years to think about doing something about their hearing. So if you're putting it in a location that's more easier accessible in the community, they're more likely to think about it. And that then goes on the other side, was from a diagnostic perspective, if they remove some cerumen or if they see something on otoscopy, that can be sent to an ENT surgeon and say, hey, this needs looking at.
So in order to move the patient from using the screener and say that they need an in-office consultation, is there a network that you're associated with? How does that transition take place?
So here in the UK, obviously we work in multiple sectors, like I said, and we're now finding that towards the end, certainly we're in 3 of the top 5 high street audiology branches within the country here. But in the sectors, let's say, such as the pharmacies, when they fail the screening hearing test, we're in a position to then say, well, these are other partners which you could go to, and almost work in a referral type manner. And the hearing providers, and here we're slightly different to the US because we have the NHS as well. So they can either go down the NHS route, or there's some providers who are obviously private providers. And, we support them in that journey by giving them appropriate advice as well.
Okay, so that's really interesting. And then I'm going to change the topic a little bit. You've also got this machine learning aspect of it. Yes. That you have predictive diagnosis and you've got some remote care options. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, so that's a really exciting part of our future. So we certainly have extremely, if not, I would say, one of the world's largest banks of ear and hearing health images and videos. I work with a great team of ENT surgeons that are from all over London and all over the country, actually, who we work together to label those images and videos. And so we've labeled more than 25,000 already, and out of the 250,000 images and videos that we have. And that has given us almost greater than, well, it has given us, and we're publishing a paper on it soon, more than 90% sensitivity and specificity around almost condition analysis. So you look at normal, abnormal, cerumen, poor quality, and then it starts to go down as we start to see more conditions. And the way it works now in the hands of the non-specialist, they can click a button and can be access to our internal audiology team. If the internal audiology team are not sure, they click another button, it comes to ENT. The team that we work with provide an opinion, and it goes back down so that end customer, patient, let's say, gets an opinion within a period of time, and a short period of time, 72 hours at the most. Oh. And the way the machine learning comes into it is that starts to add in, and we haven't deployed it yet. We can, but we're looking at the best route to do that. Is it will add another layer that even if the end user thinks that it's normal, if the machine learning comes in and says, hey, let's say there's a red dot, you need to get this escalated, it's almost that another layer of governance that comes in. And we're going to publish the papers on it first, and then we're ready to deploy it, really.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. And then you also have training academies and research academies, and you've won all these awards. Can you talk a little bit about that? It's very fascinating.
So the training is probably a really, really important part of how we've managed to upskill the allied health professional. So we've got a great training team, and what we do is we have at the moment, and well, it is the highest accredited training program in the whole of the country. Our training is accredited by ENT UK, the British Society of Audiology, the British Society of Hearing Aid Audiologists, and it's a journey. So it's almost like they have a process to go through. They have a webinar, they have a learning management system to go to, and then they have an in-person training day. And the thing which Timpa does differently to any other training company is that instead of, my surgical training, it was very much you go on a course, you do the course, you think, you're ready to go out. But as soon as you're in your own environment, you're like, oh, I've forgotten half the things that I did in the training course. So what we've done is that our trainers will go out and see that individual client in their own environment and make sure they're set up, know how to use the equipment. It's a very tech-heavy service as well, with all the added machine learning. So making sure they're comfortable with that. And then we sign them off there and then. And that has really enabled us to scale because people have become really confident in using the system. And the way that we've done that, and we kind of range from our big customers. So for example, Boots, who, is owned by Walgreens over here, they've rolled out with our system in their stores. We do a kind of, for us to be able to scale with them, we do a train the trainer type training. But for others, we just do individual training. And so we've been quite bespoke with that. And I think that has led us to, the small successes that we've had. We've also been lucky, as you mentioned, with the awards. We've got multiple patents on the product. So it's a very innovative solution. And a lot of those awards have been based around user interface, very easy to use, very smart interface. And as your last point, I think fundamentally, I've been really keen to make sure everything we do is evidence-based. So we have every 2 months, we call it the TympaHealth Institute for Research, where a bunch of people at Timpa, academic individuals from across the country. In COVID, we kind of set it up where, we'd have a big virtual meeting, and we look at cool things that are happening in the ear and hearing health space. And to be honest, it doesn't have to be always related to Timpa, but what it does do is it collaborates and thinks of how we can think outside the box, and we go and publish papers on it. And, I think that drives innovation. And, we're working with some really, really, we've even had people from the States join. So we had a Harvard professor join a few months ago because he just heard about us and said, oh, this is new and innovative. And I think that's how our kind of culture and ethos is within the system is, let's just keep doing what we're doing, publish and grow off the back of that.
Wow, that's amazing. And I also know that you mentioned this earlier, that you are deploying this product in developing countries, for example, Cambodia and India. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so if I was to say the mission here at Timpa, and I think even if you would ask the whole team, I think we want to create a solution that's available for everybody. It's a solution that, yes, it scales here in the developed world, but for me to look back and think that Timpa's been a success is for us to be able to get into the low-income resource developing world countries and deliver them a solution which they never would have had access to, specialists they never would have had access to. And you could take this briefcase that I've got here and go and deliver that service. And so we wanted to kind of see how that would work in practice. And obviously it needs infrastructure support. And so we went out to Cambodia. I had a colleague who took it with him to Cambodia, and he trained up some of the nurses there, and they were like transformative to the way they deliver services. And we've got another group that are going out to Nepal who are looking to support. I think with any young company or fast-growing company, for us to be able to sustain and do it correctly, we want to really make sure that we deliver it in a smart way so that those end users who sometimes perhaps need it more, we are able to support them. So we're just looking at the best way to deploy that. But it's a huge part of our mission and vision of where we want to get to with Timpa, because we really feel there's an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Just a couple more questions. One, is your product available in the US at this time?
So we are FDA registered, and we are coming to the US. What we are doing is doing a big piece of work on kind of the reimbursement codes, which we fit into quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, we will be ready to definitely do some really good pilots, making sure that the model that we have in the UK can be replicated in the US. And we're ready to come. We're HIPAA compliant as well. So we're just taking our time to make sure that we do it in the right way. History is littered with UK companies trying to come and crack America. So we want to make sure we do it correctly.
And we wish you the best of luck, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys here. Last question. What's the future? What does the future hold? So 5 years from now, if we were to do this again, what might we expect?
Well, I think definitely a lot of product development. I think in my head, and even written down, I think within our kind of objectives, we already know this is funny, version 2, and we already know what version 3, 4, 5 probably looks like. And I would definitely say that from a company perspective, in that time, I'd expect to be, supporting the developing world. I think from a product development, there'll be a lot more coming with the machine learning and data side that we're looking at, and predictalytics that we're looking at with the data set that we're bringing in. And also from a hardware perspective, there's much more which we can do, from analysis, from even the ability to look within the ear canal and eardrum. I think there's a lot of things that we can start to do. I mean, the eardrum is, it's very similar to what you might be able to see within the eyes and pathology that behind the eardrum as well. So I think there's a lot of things which we have in our future that we think we can really build on. And what we've got here is a great foundation. I think we can really support the journey for over the counter. I'm a big fan of providing the right due diligence to make sure that if someone does pick up an over the counter, we've made sure there's no pathology there. There's no cerumen. They haven't got a severe hearing loss. And I think one of the things for the US is Timpa could, as a very simple solution, could sit in any place and provide that due diligence to make sure that someone isn't having an over-the-counter and perhaps masking something more sinister. And you can do this assessment really quickly with Timpa.
And you've sold me on this concept. I've been very intrigued, and I'm glad that we've been able to have this conversation. And I'm a fan, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. I'm rooting you on from the sidelines. I'd like to see you guys move forward with this and bring it to the States at some point. And so hopefully down the road we'll be able to re-engage and say we had a conversation back then, and this is where you guys are now. So I'm really looking forward to that, and best of luck to you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.